Hello, welcome everyone. Looks like we have 3 people in the room. We have a very small group. So I will not turn this into like a big presentation, but more like a question and answer. And feel free to raise your hand when you want to ask a question, and then you can unmute yourself once I appoint you. So here is a brief introduction of OPT. OPT, as you know, is a job authorization that allows you to stay and work in the United States. It is your legal right as an F1 student to have the 12-month OPT period after you graduate to be able to start to be able to work in the US. And I have a question here that you may want to have this in mind when I go over the presentation. This question is, when can you start working after you graduate if you have the OPT application submitted? So keep this question in mind and we'll find out the answer later. And just as I mentioned before, this recording, this presentation will be recorded. So if you don't want to show yourself in our recording, please turn off your camera. But if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll answer it here. So why should students apply for OPT? And here is the big benefit for you to stay and work in the US. You will only receive a 12 months of OPT once every degree level. That means you have a bachelor degree, you have a 12-month OPT. You have a master degree, you will have another 12 months of OPT, and then your PhD degree is the same. And if you, sorry. And some of the people who want to apply for graduate school also would like to apply for OPT because it's a backup plan in case you do not get into the grad school that soon within the same year, or you have to wait until a certain time to get into the grad school, although you already received the admissions. And also some people told me that they have secured the H-1B sponsorship with their employer, but they still need to apply for OPT because the H-1B will not start immediately. They have to wait until usually the H-1B will begin in October, and they still need the OPT job authorization to cover their employment period between the graduation date and the H-1B start date. And then there are 3 types of OPT: pre-completion, post-completion, and STEM OPT extension. Most of people will choose post-completion OPT instead of pre-completion OPT because if you use all 12 months of the pre-completion OPT, you will lose the post-completion OPT. Pre-completion OPT allows you to work more than 20 hours in the United States during your study. But most of people will choose to work or intern after they graduate using the OPT. So now I'm only mentioning, talking about OPT, post-completion OPT here. If you are interested in the pre-completion OPT, just let me know and we'll cover it in an appointment with me. So post-completion OPT is an employment authorized to begin on or after a student's successful completion of studies and program end date. That means you will use your major, when you apply for OPT, you will need to use one of your major to apply. And under the OPT, your employment need to be directly related to your major. And not the minor, but major. So there are several requirements for OPT for students who wanted to apply for OPT. First, they must be in lawful F1 status. That means they need to maintain a full-time student status. And some of the people ask me, what if I do a reduced course load in the last semester? Will I still be a full-time student? Yes, you are still a full-time student, and you are qualified to apply for OPT. And be careful that there is a full-time CPT that is allowed when you are studying in the 4-year study, and you will lose an OPT if you do CPT for 12 consecutive months. So it's all or nothing. Like either you have 1 month, several months of CPT, or you have full CPT but no OPT later on. And you do not need to have a job offer to apply for OPT. And here we answer our question at the beginning of the slide. Employment, your employment may not begin until you have received your EAD card, which is the approval of your OPT, and on the card there is a start date there. You must start your employment on or after the start date on your EAD card. And the recommended employment start date may be on, but no later than 60 days after the official program end date. That means you will need to apply for the OPT within a certain time frame and have your OPT start within the 60 days after your official program end date, which is your graduation date. I will talk about a timeline later. Here, actually now, you may apply for the OPT as early as 90 days before your graduation date, and no later than 60 days after your graduation date. So you have 150 days in this time frame to apply for the OPT. But we will recommend you to apply before you graduate, because the DHS has delayed some OPT processing, and they may take more than 90 days to process the OPT. So in case your OPT application got delayed, we recommend you to apply as early as possible, so that you will be able to start working, start having the OPT approval right after you graduate. And if you apply after you graduate, say you graduate in May and you apply in June, and it takes the DHS to 90 days to process your OPT, then your OPT, you may receive your OPT approval in 3 months, which is, in this case, is in August or September. Then you will lose 2 or 3 months of your OPT, because your OPT must start within the 60 days after your graduation date. I hope this is clear to you. If not, just let me know. So this explains it better. So this timeline shows that here on the far left is your graduation date, and then you have 12 months of OPT from. If your OPT starts after your, like maybe a day or next to your graduation date, you have 12 months of OPT, say until, in your case, it's until May next year. And then you have 60-day grace period, or like grace period after your OPT. That grace period will allow you to transfer your F1 status, or finding another employment, or finding another path to stay in the United States. That 60-day grace period is for you. And you will not be able to work during that 60-day grace period. And you will, if you work, that's called illegal employment. So make sure you do not overuse that 60-day grace period. And then we have some COVID-19 impacts on OPT, but it was based on past years' experience. As I said before, it takes USCIS longer to process OPT, and you cannot apply for OPT from outside of the US. This is already a regulation written for a long time, but now some students were saying they wanted to stay outside of the US and they wanted to apply for OPT out in their home country. That's not recommended. Although we have cases successful before, but it is not recommended at all. You must apply for OPT within the United States. When you submit the OPT application, you need to be physically in the United States. On your OPT application, you will need to put ink signature, not electronic signatures. Although DSOs can sign your I-20s electronically, but you as a student, you will need to sign your documents in blue ink physically. I guess you all are sure you are going to graduate, right? So I'm going to skip this one. Because we will have two students coming to share about their OPT and employment experience later at about 4:30. So I'm trying to state the most important points about OPT here. And let me know if you wanted to discuss some more points on the presentation that I did not cover. So what kind of employment qualifies under OPT? I think you are more concerned about this. Of course, paid employment with an employer will be qualified. And also multiple employers also qualify under OPT. But all of your employment all need to be related to your degree program, your major. And there are some students that have short-term multiple employments during the OPT period, like a performing artist, and these are allowed. It's just you need to maintain all of your work history with you and in a secure place. If you are audited by the DHS, you will need to be prepared to provide evidence showing a list of your past employment, past legal employment. You can also employ through an agency. You will need to be able to provide evidence showing that you are at least working 20 hours per week while employed by the agency. This is something that some students asked before because they were hired through an agency, but they will need to prove that they are actually working with a company through the agency and at least 20 hours per week. Work for hire is also qualified under OPT. This is also like a contractual relationship rather than an employment relationship. So some students work as a contractor with like an organization, then they will need to be able to prove that they are performing the work related to their major of the contract periods, and also provide the name and address of the contracting company they work with. And they can also be an entrepreneur. They can do a self-employed. They can be a self-employed business owner. In this case, students must work full-time, at least 40 hours a week. This full-time meaning 40 hours here. And for other work, they can just work 20 hours, 25 hours. But here in this self-employed business owner category, they need to be working at least 40 hours per week. And they will need to prove that they have proper business license for their company or self-startup business. And be sure that you have obtained all those proper license, because your F1 status, your OPT status is not an authorization to start a business. And unpaid employment also qualifies under OPT. You can work as a volunteer or unpaid interns during your OPT time, and the work is just that it needs to be 20 hours per week. In the OPT definition, the full-time under OPT meaning 20 hours or plus. And these students must be able to provide evidence from the employer that they work at least 20 hours per week during the period of employment. So make sure when you have your employment, you need to report your employer information, address, phone numbers, all these things to the USCIS by 2 methods. And then I'll talk about the 2 methods when we go over our requirements of reporting. Any questions so far? So here is the most exciting thing I wanted to share with you. Here, let me see. We have a new filing, OPT filing system for you. And here, let me click on this link real quick. We have changed our ISS work, most of our ISS work, to an online platform called TU International Portal. It's a platform that allows students to upload documents and download documents from the ISSS office. And on every page, the pages that under the ISSS program, we have, oh, hi, Mingcheng. We have the instructions for each process you will need to go through. So here on this page, we have the optional practical training instruction. And I have covered this in my presentation, but here is the steps you will need to take when you apply for OPT. So when you apply for OPT, you will need to first obtain the OPT I-20 from our office. That's the most important thing that you will need to interact with our office. Here, these steps tell you how to obtain it. So you can review this when you are ready to apply for the OPT. I'm not going to go through every items, but it's just a way to encourage you to utilize this system. And you can, if you need to review any documents, but you didn't have it in hand, your documents are all under your account in this portal, like I-94, I-20s, all previous I-20s, passport copies, visa copies, they are all there. So try to use this system to obtain documents and organize your documents. Okay. One more thing I wanted to emphasize is that, whoops. I didn't tell you how to apply for OPT. I only tell you how to obtain the I-20. And here on step 5, after you obtain the OPT I-20 and organize all your documents, here is the instruction to show you how to apply for the OPT. Here are the documents you need to gather. And once you have everything ready, you will go to the USCIS portal to open an account and follow the instructions on the portal to apply for the OPT online. So we get rid of all the paper filing. Now we have this beautiful USCIS portal to help you apply for OPT here. And these are just instruction on for you to how to apply and how to use the portal. And we listed some frequently questions here and answers here. to help you navigate around the system. So here's that. OPT reporting requirements. We have a simple OPT reporting requirements for our students. For the OPT STEM, it's a little bit more complicated, but OPT reporting, very simple. Once you have your OPT approved, you'll receive an email from the SCVP to ask you to open an account at the SUV portal. In the portal, you'll be able to report all these things. Your legal name change, residential address change, telephone number change, email change on the US SCV portal, not as CVS, but SCV portal. And only when you have an interruption of employment, you will need to report it directly to us, which we already listed the method here. If you have interruption of employment, you use the OPT reporting form to report it to us. It's important for you to remember to report your interruption of employment with us and within 10 days. And within 10 days, your unemployment days will not be deducted. But if your interruption of employment period is over 10 days, your unemployment days will start counting on the 11th days of the stop of your employment. And then social security number, I think maybe not all of you have the social security number, but if you don't have, you will be able to apply for the SSN when you apply for OPT. So make sure you apply because all of the employer now needs an SSN to be able to pay you so that they can fulfill their tax obligation in the company. What to expect after applying for OPT? Say you apply for OPT, the earliest day you can apply is the 21st of February. Say you apply on the 21st of February, and after you submit everything on the system, you will receive a receipt number immediately after you submit it. And that receipt number is for you to track your OPT case status. Make sure you track it in a regular basis so that you won't miss any important information that the USCIS will send you. Sometimes they will send an RFE to our student. That means they need more information from you to be able to process your OPT application. If unfortunately you receive such an RFE, contact us immediately and we will help you to respond to the RFE. Traveling while on OPT, a lot of people say, how many of you, can you raise your hand? How many of you want to travel after you graduate before you start working? You can raise your hand or unmute your mic. Carlos. Okay. Oh, Victoria. I see. Oh, a lot of you are thinking about traveling at that time. Yeah, I know a lot of students, they want to travel before they start working. It is a good timing for themselves in life, but it is sometimes it might not be a good timing when you are waiting for the OPT. So here I listed two scenario. First is travel while your OPT application is pending. Say you apply for the OPT in February and you are waiting, and it is still in pending status in late May or early June, just depends on the USCIS processing time. And you want to travel during that time, then that time is actually a great period for you, like for any F1 students. So we usually do not recommend you to travel at that time because you might be denied entry by the port of entry officer. But if you have like family emergency that you need to travel back home and re-enter the US later with a pending OPT, make sure you have these things: passport, valid F1 visa stamp in your passport, I-20, and then the OPT application receipt notice. If you have an employment offer, you bring the employment offer with you too. Shows that there is a job waiting for you to come back to the US. But still, we do not recommend you to travel unless you have a family emergency. And then the second scenario is traveling while on OPT and you have an EAD card. So this is better if you, but still, there is no guarantee that you will be permitted to re-enter the US. This is all depends on how the how the port of entry officer interprets your situation. So in order to have the best chance to re-enter the US without problems, you will need to provide the following documents: everything that I just mentioned, and your valid EAD card, and your job or employment verification by your company. And with all these documents in hand, you should be able to re-enter the US. But again, I cannot say 100%. But this is what people have been practicing before. Sometimes you will have an expired visa during that time. So make sure you renew your visa before you enter the US. And the EAD card and the OPT approval is an evidence for your F1 status. So make sure if you need to renew your visa, bring your EAD card, OPT approval notice, and your I-20 with you. The signature on the I-20 should be within 6 months. So one thing I want to remind you is during your OPT, your I-20 should be signed every 6 months, including the stamp period. This is required by law to maintain the valid validation of the I-20. So if you, well, first, I just mentioned the unemployment period. So here's the 90 days is the length of your unemployment period during OPT. So you are allowed to be unemployed within 90 days. This 90 days can happen at the beginning of your OPT, during your OPT, or at the end of your OPT, or you can break it into several periods. Just depends on if you have a reinterruption of employment. As I said before, if you change your employer, you will have, say you start with the first employer now, and then in 15 days, your second employment will start. Then your unemployment days will start counting on the 11th day after your first employment ends. So you have that 10 days as a bonus. Okay, but I don't want you to lose any employment or interruption any employment. I want all of you to have good career after you graduate. So be sure to document all of your employment documents like job offer letter, like a volunteer confirmation letter, supervisor letter, as proof that you have not exceeded the 90-day unemployment rule. And most importantly, you report your employment and unemployment through the SEV portal and not through the SEV portal, but to the USCIS through our OPT reporting form, so that you prove that you are in the United States legally and did not go over your 90-day unemployment time. So 2 points bolded here. You may remain in the US with an expired F1 visa as long as your status is valid. Your F1 status is including the OPT period. So your status is valid during the OPT. If you decide to leave the US for any reason, you will need to have your F1 visa renewed if it is expired. And any of you are in STEM major and plan to apply for STEM, raise your hand. Okay. Okay, STEM extension. Oh, one more. It shows one more person raised their hand, but I didn't see it. Oh, Ming Cheng raised your hand. Great. STEM OPT extension is a benefit for the students who are majoring in STEMs, that they can have 24 months of the OPT in addition to their 1 year regular OPT. And this is a degree program list. You can look it over later. Here. So in order to be eligible for the STEM extension, you will need to first be in lawful F1 status at the time of application. Everyone knows it. So to fulfill this requirement, you will need to apply before the end of your OPT. Once you end your OPT, you are not in lawful F1 status, right? So make sure you apply before it. You have not been previously authorized for 24 months STEM. So again, one degree program have one STEM extension, one degree level have one STEM extension. So if later you get in grad school, you are a master in a STEM major, you still have a 24-month extension under your master degree program. And your employer must be an E-verified employer when you apply for the STEM, at the time when you apply for the STEM extension. This is required. Some students said their employer did not know if they're E-verified or they did not have an E-verification. Then it is easy for them to be E-verified. Just go over some government policy. So if your employer told you about they did not have that E-verification, you can always contact our office and I'll give you some advice on that. Or they can contact us directly if their human resource department need to, and I'll provide some good recommendation. So some timing consideration for STEM extensions. Here there is, see the second point. You can apply for the STEM extension no sooner than 90 days from the expiration date of your OPT. So starting at the last, a third to the last month of your OPT, you can start applying for the STEM extension. And you will not be able to apply after your OPT end date. And application must be received by the USCIS no later than 60 days of the DSO recommended the benefit, STEM benefit in the cities. This means once we generate the OPT STEM extension I-20, you will need to submit the application no later than 60 days after we generate it. So make sure you have this in mind. Some students, they will just receive the OPT I-20, OPT STEM I-20 and put it aside and wait until they suddenly remember it and start apply. But that 60 days has passed. So make sure you have this in mind. And you will be able to, once you apply for STEM, your STEM is like in the USCIS system, your STEM application is in the USCIS system, you will be able to work up to 180 days, that's 6 months, past the end date of your regular OPT. But if your STEM application is denied, then you will need to stop working immediately. OPT STEM reporting requirements. This is very fun. A lot of reporting requirements. I'll show you here. So this is a fantastic page that I want to show you that lists all of the STEM extension reporting requirements here. And you can read it when it's time for you to apply for STEM. But basically, there are two types of reporting. One type is the 6-month reporting. You will need to verify your legal name, address, employer name, and your status of employment in your 6-month report. So it happened every 6 months. So four times of this 6-month reporting will happen in your STEM major, in your STEM OPT period. And then you also need to do an annual self-evaluation. So on the first year, at the end of your first year of the STEM and the second year of your STEM, you will need to submit an annual self-evaluation to verify your STEM status and your employment status. And also, if you have changed in employer or your employer has changed their EIN number, or you have significantly reduced your hours or compensation in your employment, you will need to also submit a form like what you did in the annual self-evaluation. It's the same form. It's called I-983. That form has, you will need to put down very detailed employment information like compensation, work hours, address, phone number of the employer, and your training plan with your employer on that I-983. So this is a very important form for you to remember. And here is how you can report your all this, fulfill your reporting responsibility with the USCIS. I'm not going to go over it. So if you need to, it's time for you to do the 6 month, you come here, you click on, like you follow the instruction here, boom, that's done, right? Once you hit your 1 year, 1 year of your STEM extension, come here, follow the instruction, and you will fulfill the requirement of these annual self-reporting. So I hope you understand this pretty well. If you have any question, just let me know. Or if you are not able to unmute your mic, you can also drop a note on the chat. Here are 2 points I wanted to emphasize. Only work for an E-Verify employer if they are not E-Verified. But if they are willing to E-Verify themselves, that's good also. Just make sure they are E-Verified before you submit your STEM application. And the second point, it looks complicated, but basically it says you will not, you have 90-day unemployment days in your OPT period, right? And for STEM extension, the student have also additional 60-day unemployment period during the 24-month STEM. So if you don't use any of the unemployment period in your regular OPT, then you will have that 90-day plus the 60-day, together is 150-day unemployment days during the entire 3-year OPT extension period. So make sure you record all of your employment so that you have a very accurate calculation of your unemployment days. If your record is audited by the USCIS, you will still be able to prove yourself. Okay, I think I have, I have some students supposed to come talk about their experience, but I haven't seen them. Oh, Rajan, you are here. Great.
Hey, yes.
Thank you so much for coming. So I will let Rajan talk about his experience about job hunting as an international student, going through interviews, and career development as an international student in the United States. And after that, feel free to ask us any questions regarding OPT, regarding finding jobs in the United States, blah, blah, blah. So Roger, it's your time.
All right, thank you, Jesse. Everyone, my name is Rojan. I don't think, or I feel like I know some of you here. If you don't know me, I graduated last year, May. I guess I'm also a fellow international student, like Jesse said, from Nepal, born in Nepal, from Mexico City, graduated high school from Mexico City. I graduated with a major in, or degree of science, Bachelor of Science in Business Analytics and Technology, also known as BAT, and a minor in computer science. At my time at Trinity, I was pretty lucky to be involved in quite a lot of different organizations. I was a student ambassador, worked as an RA in Res Life. I worked with student involvement, the admissions office, and so on. So I was able to build up a lot of connections through that. And even though I was running around campus all the time, minus the COVID years, I do kind of miss being busy. So there are a couple of things that I guess I wanted to talk about today, especially how I got the job and just reaching out to others, making connections, making the most out of weak connections, just the process of applications and cover letters, and also the help that you get from Jesse and the ISSS department. So as a little bit of background, I currently work in a car insurance company as a data scientist. I won't bore you with the details, but if you are interested in what it means to be a data scientist and whatnot, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have that conversation. And the job search was pretty tedious, a little bit discouraging at times, definitely. But the best advice that I and a lot of people alongside me and people who have told me is the worst thing you can do is just stop applying. Honestly, yeah, it's kind of a grind. You just got to keep at it. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. But I found my job through a string of connections. I reached out to my professors, my supervisors, and mentors that I had throughout my time at Trinity. So like I said, I was pretty involved on campus. So I reached out to, yeah, like I said, my professors, any advisors that I had, including Jesse, and including other friends of the department. Like even if they're like a secretary, you don't have to be as extroverted or just like be willing to make those connections all the time. But if you know anyone, Trinity is, I would say, filled with people that are trying to help you. So even starting a small little conversation with someone is honestly super helpful. So you just got to put yourself out there, and also think about the weak ties. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you really should be, because that's a great way to connect. If you're interested in applying to a certain company, you can always see like the connections that you have there. See if they are a Trinity alum, you can kind of filter those out. And I know it can be super nerve-wracking kind of reaching out to them, but honestly, just think of it as a starting point, right? Just reach out to them and be like, hey, how'd you get this job? Or what kind of skills have you started with? I would love to know about what the company culture is like, right? You don't need to head into that conversation being like, hey, I want a job, right? Can you give me a job? Because that's not going to get you anywhere. So just phrasing it, being curious and learning about their experiences, I would say is super great way to start the conversation, being like, hey, you work as for me, for instance, you work as a head data scientist at this company. Even though I don't know much about the company, I'm very interested in what you do. Would you have some time this week, or do you have some time? And maybe could we talk about how you got started, right? I know it's nerve-wracking, but just think of it that way. Even if they don't tell you at the end of the meeting, like, send me your resume, I'll look over it, I'll send it to a boss, or I'll review it myself. Like, they don't need to say that. All you're doing is a learning experience, right? Like, I think it's super valuable personally, and I would highly recommend doing it. So those are some of the things that I did. And even if you reach out to your professor and they might not be able to directly help you, they might direct you to someone who, who does have the ability to help you. And then having conversations like these, people that you don't necessarily know, I believe also helps you feel a little bit more comfortable when you're doing interviews per se, right? Like if you go into a interview for the first time with a big company that you've really been trying to work with or wanting to work with, like if they're the first people that are kind of like that kind of intimidate you, right? They have this higher position, like obviously you might be a little bit nervous, and that might kind of throw you off. But if you start having conversations like that, just with the idea of learning and then being able to express that in an interview, super valuable. So I think that's very important. Just kind of put yourself out there. I know it's a little bit scary, but think about it as a learning experience rather than being shut down or ultimately getting a job, right? I don't think that should, I mean, it helps to have that goal, but I don't think it should be your main goal when it comes out to reaching out to connections. And ultimately, it will, it will hopefully help you out when you have actual interviews. And again, like I said earlier, just even if you're not hearing back from companies, I know it's tough, it's discouraging, but just keep sending those interviews, the applications. Hopefully you'll get one. And the more you have, the more experience you have interviewing and just gathering information from everyone, super helpful. The second thing I wanted to talk about is applications and also cover letter. So it's a very standardized process. It's very stepwise and it's very computational at first. If you didn't know that, it's very particular in the sense that they have like keyword matches. How many of the keywords do you have on your resume and your cover letter versus when you have it, on their job description. So if you can, I would highly recommend just tweaking things like, do they use a leader, right? Like it wants to be a leader. So they think of a project that you led, right? So talk about any adjectives or whatever that describe you, just try and add it as much as you can. So that gives you a slight advantage. We are in a slight disadvantage because obviously a lot of applications have the questions of like, do you require a sponsorship in the future, right? And that's you're like, oh, it's already going to filter me out. But I would say still go for it. Honestly, kind of a trick that I use is just have my resume and then I'll use like keywords, I'll highlight them, and then I'll be like, oh, I could interchange like this word with this word. So if they use this word instead, I'll just put that in there. And same with cover letters. So kind of like, kind of a hack. So that way you're not writing a whole new cover letter every single time. Just make sure that it's kind of fitted for the company. Highly recommend it. Yeah, and I talked to a few alumni and that's what they were telling me every single time. And then the last part is the application for OPT. I worked a lot with Jesse and the ISSS department, and honestly, they were super helpful. I was pretty nervous, I'm not gonna lie. Throughout the whole process, it was kind of stressful. I was like, did I have everything? But Jesse and the team do a really good job of just constant checkups and then follow-ups. And then as we're in the meeting, just being like, okay, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have that? And then if you say no to any of them, I know they have they're great at keeping backups of, let's say, the I-20s or whatever. And so if you feel like you don't have a document or you're scared that you don't have it available, they're super helpful. Honestly, like I said, it was stressful. All of my friends, we kind of applied at the same time, and they received their EAD card like 2 months before I did, even though we applied at the same time. And so I was getting super nervous, and I was like texting Jesse. I was like, Jesse, I still haven't received mine, but I heard that these friends already got it. And then she's like, it's okay, you still have a month to go or whatever. And then like, they were super helpful. So if you have any questions, I feel like they're a great resource. So don't be afraid to use them. And yeah, that kind of summarizes everything. Just, put yourself out there, have those connections going, and then obviously think about the application and the cover letter. And yeah, the ISSS department is there to help you.
Thank you, Roger. You put a lot of good words for us. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences. Sometimes barriers for you to find jobs and how you overcome it. Thank you so much. It was a great learning moment, of course, for everyone here. And I have Sylvia here, and I've shared their personal email there. They already gave me authorization. So if you have questions, you can ask them later. But I wanted to present Sylvia here, and she's going to briefly talk about her experience as an international student looking for jobs in the US and how her work experience is going on now, and briefly about her OPT application experience. We still have 5 minutes to the end of our session, but if you wanted to stay a little longer, feel free, and I'll always be here.
I think Rojan did a great job explaining how to, when you see a job posting, see keywords that match match it with your resume, and like when you're sending your cover letter. I think those are great advices. I will say that I did a lot of what is called emailing, even if there's no job posting on a website or like an agency, or it was more for, I graduated with a marketing and political science degree. I should have started with that. And I knew I wanted to work in a marketing agency. And a lot of the times I would go to a website of a marketing agency and there would be no job postings. So, but there would be an email. So I would still send my resume, a cover letter, and a little explanation about myself, inquiring about a job and introducing myself and explaining like, I would just love to work at your company. And I would briefly explain why I wanted to work at that company. And a lot of times I would get responses. And actually the job where I'm working right now at Noisy Trumpet, which is a digital marketing and public relations agency, that's how I got the job. I emailed the email that was there in late May, and she emailed me back until July, asking, finally replying like, hey, I just have an opening and I know you have sent your email. So, and I know you have emailed me with your resume and I liked it. So would you be open for an interview? And that's how I got my job. So definitely don't be scared to just send in your resume and cover letter, introducing yourself, even if there's no job opening. If you're looking for a corporate, more structured company, they will have like a career section with a lot of job openings, but still, like, don't be afraid to just email your resume and stuff. You'll be surprised with how impressed of how unorthodox that is, and you'll stand out. I don't know. I know it's
Sylvia.
closely
Yeah.
to the time, so that's my one advice, just like email and apply however you could. ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, with everything. And do network with Trinity alumni that you find that work at the company. Most of the time, Trinity people are super nice. A lot of the companies I was applying to, and I saw the Trinity people, someone who graduated from Trinity worked there. I would send them a LinkedIn invitation and we would talk for like an hour with career advice. Even if I'm not working there, it was still really useful. So you should also do that. Use the Trinity network.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Yeah, Trinity is very helpful, especially like our alumni network. If you need more information, I believe you can go to the Career Center and ask for like if there is any international alumni or alumni that international student alumni is a network, and then alumni within your major or in your department. If there is anyone in your department, alumni in your department that work in the industry, then it might be also another source for you. Sylvia said, feel free to add my LinkedIn. Thank you. Yeah, I believe LinkedIn is a good place to go if you're looking to expand your network. And sometimes by just looking at other people's past work experience, you may get some ideas about how you will want to shape your future career. So yeah, but I'm not a career advisor, but I care about international students and their later developments after they graduate. So I am very grateful for Roger and Sylvia, you two, out of your very busy schedule, you can come back and share your experience. And I am planning to have more workshops like this to help network our international students and form a network of the international community here. So I may send you guys emails later regarding some other new initiatives. But thank you so much for your sharing of experience with us in this workshop. And as I said before, feel free to email ISSS if you have any questions regarding OPT application and reporting requirements. And if you wanted to get connect with our international alumni, connect with them on LinkedIn or send them an email here. And if you wanted to ask for a specific like a network, maybe you can ask a career center or ask your department to share some information with you. Okay, I think that's all we have. I hope everyone have a wonderful weekend, although it's first day, but I can't wait for the weekend. So have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much. And this workshop will also be, the recording of this workshop will also be shared on our website, the ISSS website. So if you need to review it, go to our ISSS website later. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. It was nice seeing
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.